This is House Planning Help, episode 133. Hello, I'm Ben Adam Smith, and this is the podcast for you if you're interested in self-build, because I'm exploring what houses we should be building in the 21st century and trying to break down the major roadblocks that may get in our way. Alongside this, my personal goal is still to create an energy-efficient home, although I wanted to do this before I turned 40, just a couple of months away now. My guest in this session is Paul Foulkes from Echohouse, and we're going to be looking at building automation and KNX. First, though, I'm going to turn my hand to being an estate agent. Yes, I know, unlikely. For a very good reason, though. My friends Mike and Lizzie, who live in the autonomous house, are thinking of selling. And so I thought, because it's one thing, you can put it on an estate agent website, and as is proved here, the title of this is 4-bedroom detached for sale. Doesn't really tell the whole story. I know it's in the spiel, and it does wind me up that that's the way they sell properties here in the UK, just with how many bedrooms. Doesn't even talk about the floor space. Anyway, getting back to it, we chatted to Mike in episode 54, so we'll link that up in the show notes, where we ran through the autonomous house and why it had been built that way. It's built up to Passive House standard, although it's not actually a certified building. And they went a step further. They wanted to disconnect from the grid, disconnect from mains water supply and sewage, and they're all self-contained. They look after their own needs. So it's a very particular person that would want to buy this house, and that's why I thought it's important, particularly as Mike and Lizzie have been such a help to me over the last couple of years. There's no way I could have launched the hub without their support down at Longbarrow Passive House. We've done filming session after filming session, and they have been brilliant. So if you're interested in their house, this is a huge opportunity for you. They want to relocate further north. And so I'll put all the details in today's show notes, houseplanninghelp.com/133. Not your average house. Today's interview came via a tip-off from Alex Baines, the self-builder behind Longbarrow. We've already mentioned him today. And he wondered whether I'd explored building automation before. We talked about smart homes, but this is slightly different, isn't it? It's about the centralized control for things like heating, ventilation, lighting, and so on, electrical bits and pieces. And I suppose what's most interesting for me is I love simplicity and going down that route. So building automation, I'm convinced that somewhere in here it's able to help us use less energy. But when is it really necessary, and when is it just encouraging us to use more gadgets? So that's why I think this conversation is going to be very useful. My guest is Paul Foulkes from Echohouse. As I mentioned, he's got tons of experience. And I got underway by asking Paul to tell me a little bit about his background.
I'm an engineer by trade. At 16, I did an apprenticeship and I worked on aircraft for 11 years. Then in the mid-90s, I moved into the construction side of things. So at that point there, the natural progression for me was to become an electrician, household electrician. And I quickly started looking at building automation, renewables, that sort of thing. So it sort of grew out of there. A key factor that happened was that I installed an intelligent heating system for a client. About 2 years later, they phoned me up and one of the parts on it had failed. So I went back to the manufacturer and said, I need a replacement for this part. And they said, oh, we don't make that anymore. So you'll have to replace the entire system. So immediately I started thinking about this whole idea of proprietary systems and the disadvantages with them that you're tied into that one company. And then someone turned around to me, one of my suppliers, and said, why don't you look at KNX? And that was the start of the journey. And that was in early 2000. And by 2003, I was a qualified KNX installer. And coming back to what I said, it's a non-proprietary system, 400 manufacturers across the world. So you're never short of a piece of kit, and it's backwards and forwards compatible.
You've already jumped a long way. So let's bring it back to our discussion point today, which is building automation. Mm-hmm. What is it?
Building automation allows you to look at the systems within your house and operate those in a more efficient manner. So generally with a standard house, if you've got a simple light switch, it doesn't mean that much. But once you start layering into that a heating control, now granted that's not valid within Passive House, but you are looking at ventilation control, maybe shutters, to control solar gain, or just for security. Once you start layering in these systems, then being able to have all these under one roof, under one protocol, makes it much simpler and much more effective. So you can bring in your security, your access, say your blinds, your shutters, your lights. You can then also start looking at things like environmental monitoring, temperatures, heat gains, solar gains, VOCs, volatile organic compounds, CO2 monitoring, heat detection, smoke detection. All of these come under one system, one protocol, and bring it all into one central point.
In our houses at the moment, this just doesn't apply, does it? I'm assuming, thinking about what we've got, unless you've organised your house with all the sensors and the wiring that it needs, we don't have this.
No, we don't. There is the question of saying, well, do we need it? But then you could say, do we need to be looking at a lot of things within our house? There is a huge amount of talk of smart homes these days. Nest, the Apple Home Care Kit, all of these sort of areas. So people are talking about this, and they are talking of app-based systems that attach onto your boiler, onto your heating system. We are already looking in that direction of being able to access our buildings, access our homes from our phones or from our computers, and also to be able to have more information about our homes. 10% energy saving across a year quickly starts to add up.
And thinking about it, we're very much new build, so this is the perfect opportunity to make the most of it while you can. So what are the first steps then if we're looking at our new house? You mentioned all these smart systems. Now, whether I think they're good or bad, I think they're coming.
Yeah.
So what should we be prepared for?
It's really a case of trying to stand back from a system or from your building and look at everything within the building. One of the sort of problem areas I find with smart homes as such is that if you want to look at a heating system, you talk to your plumber. If you want to look at something to control your lighting, you talk to an electrician. So straight away, you're already talking about multiple layers. You're adding in complication. And the idea of all of these systems is really to simplify your life. So do you really want your house run by 12 different apps, different systems, or do you want it run by one different apps? So it's the point when you're planning is to step back. And then, that's the time when you're looking at all of your windows, all of your insulation, all of your wall finishes. You're taking a broader view, or you're asking your architect maybe to take a broader view. You should be doing this with your electrical system as well.
Do we need to get this right first time? Because otherwise we've got to take stuff out the walls again.
Definitely. And that's the time to do it, is to look at it from that point. Don't start building and then look at your electrics as an afterthought, which from my years of experience of actually installing electrics in houses, people do it all the time. Design fabulous buildings and then go, how are we going to light this? How are we going to heat it? How are we going to control it? It's always the afterthought. It's like, think of it from the beginning. This applies to ventilation.
This applies to everything in self-build. Yeah. Everyone's answer is, just think of it at the beginning. The trouble is we haven't been through this before to know. Yeah. And we've never talked about wiring on the podcast. So what wiring does a house have at the very basics, and then building it up to where we might want these smart systems? You're
always going to have your circuits for sockets, for outlets, power outlets. You're always going to have a need for lighting in each of the rooms. Though that's your fundamental. You're then talking about an overlay on top of that of controlling a heating system, if it's installed, any form of heating. You're then talking about your ventilation system. That's something key with the modern builds with the air tightness. You're then starting to look at your air quality, monitoring your air quality, which will then feed back to your ventilation system. So it's this constant layer of systems of bringing them together, as opposed to always looking at them at different disparate systems or installations. Bring them together, look at them at one time. Thinking just sort of taking one step forward, let's say, what about if you want to put an electric car into your house? Attached to your house, so you've got a charging point. Any renewables you put onto your house, solar thermal, solar electric or PV, battery systems, going off grid with the Tesla wall and all this, any sort of energy storage. You need to be looking at all of this now and saying, I can put in a system that will control all of this the most efficiently.
And does that bring us back to what you mentioned, first of all? I've already forgotten these initials. Do the initials stand for anything?
No, they don't. It's KNX, and it's the worldwide accepted building automation standard. So it's accepted throughout Europe, America, Australasia, and China. And it's difficult to get them accepted across standards accepted across the world. So
I was about to say, it is very, very tricky. So does it have any other competitors, or can we breathe nice and easily that this is the only thing and someone's not going to tell us 5 years later, why have you got that one?
KNX has been around for 26 years. So it's not a new technology. It's not just dropped onto your doorstep now, sort of like a Google Nest. And it's building automation. It's not a heating control system or a smart home system. It is building automation. It's fully scalable. So I've actually got it in my own house, and it goes all the way up to buildings like the British Library, Terminal 5, Birdnest Stadium. So it is completely scalable from large down to small. One of the key things, part in the same, as I said before, it's non-proprietary.
What do you mean? Sorry if I'm...
It's not built by one company.
Right.
KNX is a protocol. KNX is not a company that manufactures a piece of kit. It's not sort of like Honeywell Evo Home or Control 4 or Loxon, which are one company. They sell you one piece of kit. If that goes wrong, you have to go back to them.
So online, the equivalent would be open source. Is that what you're saying?
Source, yeah.
Now, is there
kit,
kit, though, that's needed for this? There must be something physical within the house, or not? It's just a computer?
No, you don't need the computer. It's right.
Hold on. As you can see, yeah, I'm a beginner here. So we're talking, well, hold on. You don't need a computer.
No, it's an addressable bus system. So every item that has a control, so an input or an output into the system. So think of an input being a switch, an output being an actuator that controls your immersion tank for your water. So you can turn your water tank on and off. Those are the points within the system. Each one of those is addressed so that you can then, what you then do is you link each of those together. You have a piece of software that you carry out the linking with.
So we do need a computer.
No, only to commission it. You then take that away. Each individual item is its own individual system. So there's no central hardware. There's no central processor. So you don't have a centralized point of failure. You don't have a Wi-Fi router. You don't need Wi-Fi. So you just need the cable in place, and then each individual piece of kit that's hung off the end of that cable. So whether it's a light switch or whether that's a touch panel, it doesn't matter.
Okay, I'm going to try and relay some of this back to you to see if I understand. So if we've only got this cabling and the switches and so forth and the feedback, this is happening in the cloud. What's the magic?
Nothing.
What? How is it working? It's amazing.
Each individual switch, I suppose the simple way to put it, although it sounds overly complicated, each individual switch has its own processor. Each individual actuator has its own processor. If you add an actuator, the processor is within that. That processor you give an address to, similar to an IP address, you give an address to, and then everything else in the system can talk to that. The only time you need a computer is to add that piece of kit into the system. You then address it, you then take the computer away, or the piece of software away that programs it, that commissions it, and it runs, and that's it.
I think we need an example.
Because it's a multi-noded address system, what's different from, say, like an IP system is that you would need an IP cable, a Cat6 or Cat5 cable, to every single switch in your house, and then feeding that back to a network switch in say, your utility room. And then your outputs from that are connected to, say, like a switch that switches on your immersion tank. That's a lot of cabling. The advantage with the bus system is that it can be star-wired, it can be Christmas treed. As long as the piece of kit is connected to the bus by 2 wires, then you can address that piece of kit. So as long as you've got your wire to any position that you want an input or an output, you can hang what you like off that. And you can change as well.
I seem to be wanting a computer to be involved. What about controlling it then? If I want to make a change or do something within this system, I accept the fact that it all works without a computer. Am I not using a computer then?
To make a large change to the system, yes, you would. You'd need a programming system. This is where I think from a home builder, this is where you will need someone else involved. You will need someone to commission the system. But you can install it. You can install the cabling the same as you'd install any other cabling, and then you would only bring in someone to commission the system. You can commission it yourself, but you need to buy the software, and the software is €1,000. But it's pointless doing that because you're only going to use it for once. If you have, let's say in a bedroom, you've got a switch that has 4 inputs, let's say an on and off for the light, an up and down for your blinds. If you then wanted to change that to a 6-touch switch, to an on and off for your light, an up and down for your blinds, and maybe an on and off for a ceiling fan, the person that then has carried out the commissioning for you can carry out the setup that you want it to do and just post it to you. So they don't even have to come to your site. You then take the 4-point switch off the wall, connect in the 6-point switch. It's 2 simple cables at the back, and you're ready to go.
Can we talk a little bit about the monitoring and what you would use it for? We know that it runs its automation. When would we use this monitoring?
Well, the monitoring, on a standard installation, if you're just using lights, there's little need for monitoring. But for instance, if you had a photovoltaic installation, you could monitor your input and outputs. You can monitor your own energy usage. So energy coming into the house, obviously if you are exporting energy as well, so you can have a look at that. All of that information can be monitored and then displayed however you want to, whether it be in an Excel file or something graphical on your computer. You can connect your home computer into the system via a USB plug. So you just need to sort out a connection point, or you can actually do it by Wi-Fi as well. So you connect the building automation into the Wi-Fi system. It doesn't need it, but then via that Wi-Fi system, via that router, you then get access via your phone, via a laptop, or you can project that information remotely. So you could be abroad on holiday and you would still get the information about the house. So you could access the various monitoring stuff, or if the smoke alarm goes off, you're alerted that the smoke alarm's gone off. You can then cancel that smoke alarm. Or if you've got cameras in the house, you can have a look in the house. So there's sort of all those levels of complexity that you can add into it if you want to.
Very much about saving energy and trying to simplify things as much as possible. So there's got to be a line somewhere where we're getting into gadgets that aren't always necessary. How do you define that line?
Personally, I'm not a lover of useless gadgets. I like a gadget, but it needs to serve a real true purpose. If I can monitor the amount of energy that I'm using in my house, I can then see the points at which the energy is being wasted. So that means that I can tackle those energy usages. Something that I'm employing in my own house here is every single room has a room monitor. Simply put, it's a motion detector, but it's an absence or a presence detector. It's also the room temperature controller. With that information from that room, I can time the heating systems so that they will only operate when people come into the rooms, that they will set back at specific times from 20 degrees to 17 degrees to 12 degrees. I can pre-program all of that information into it around a set of parameters that I set. That means that I can operate my heating system at the most efficient. There's a setup time. It doesn't actually take that long. But once the parameters are in, I can access those parameters. You can set it up so that you can access those parameters without having the commissioning tool, without having the commissioning program. So you then access that via your computer. So you, as a home builder, would have access to these to change the times at which your temperatures change. That's something quite normal. So it's like a standard programmable thermostat, but you would have it so that every single room is individual, and then you'd have a layer of control on top of that, that if you set it to turn on at 10 o'clock in the morning, but no one comes into the room, then it won't turn on at all.
Interesting you use heating as an example, because we talk a lot about passive house, and this is something that has a fairly constant temperature. So I could say to you at this point, well, all of this controlling heating, we've put a gadget in there to do that, when actually, if we're being sensible about this, we might go down a passive house route and eliminate just that whole heating thing full stop.
Absolutely. There is no doubt. I've recently said about Passive House and KNX, and one of the things that I've said about it was that Passive House does not need KNX. It doesn't need it at all. You can carry out all the functions within a Passive House. But what Passive House addresses is the energy usage within that house, the heating energy usage, or the energy heating loss, thermal loss. Once you've addressed all of that, what you're left with is the two active parts of energy use, which is lighting and hot water and ventilation as well, to a degree. So they now make up a massive percentage of the amount of energy that you're using. So if you can then add again that same level of energy efficiency to that as well, you are improving the efficiency of that building. And also, the thing about Passive House is that generally, a lot of them are designed as high-end, high-quality buildings. Do you really want white MK switches on the wall where you've designed this fabulous house, you're using amazing materials, and some of them have absolutely beautiful finishes? Look at the 7 shortlisted buildings for the awards at the moment. These are fabulous-looking buildings. So why not complement that with a system within the house that is beautiful as well and is efficient and works? It does what it says it can do.
How will we get started if we decided we wanted this? What steps need to happen?
You can look up KNX on the internet. The wiring is very simple. I would suggest, although I'm about to suggest this, I am a KNX consultant. Give any KNX consultant a call. KNX integrator.
What makes you a KNX consultant? Is any official?
Yes, yeah. There's the KNX course. You carry out there's a 5-day fundamental in a basic training that allows you to be an integrator, and then after that, there's sort of the various top-ups and the sort of standard thing that you'd get. But your basic course is the KNX integrator course. You can check that on the internet, so you can find out if someone is an integrator. That integrator, that consultant, will guide you through the process. And they are more than willing to, on a vast majority of cases, they will let you put the cable in and then they will come along and just do the commissioning. But they will guide you through. They will help you create the right system. So the same as anyone else, we look at the set of floor plans and say, this would be a good place for a motion detector. This would be a good place to monitor your heating, your temperature or your CO2 levels, or this is a place for your smoke detectors. And this is how we bring the system. So they will plan the system for you. You then drop the cable into their schematic. You can even do the second fix, actually hang the stuff on the walls, and then they will come along and boot in the commissioning program for you. But as I said earlier, they could actually do that from afar. They can pre-program the pieces of kit and post them to you, or you fit them and then they will email you the program and you just upload it.
Google and Apple clearly think there is a future in data, in control in the home. You are bound to have quite a different viewpoint from me. So what are they wanting to do? Why are they so keen on this?
Well, the Google and Apple thing I'll come back to specifically in a second, but the idea of having this information is being able to assess what you're using energy-wise within your building. We are moving towards, whichever way we look at it, energy is going to be more expensive as we go on, regardless of the price of oil at the moment. There is no doubt about that. There is also a question that it's going to become a much scarcer resource, whichever way we try and find it. There is the way that we pay and use our energy is going to change in the next 5 years fundamentally, where we're talking about half-hour billing. So your electricity between, say, 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the evening could be 10 times the price of what it is overnight. That sort of changing billing in energy usage will make things like battery storage within a house all of a sudden really interesting, because you could charge your battery when it's very cheap and then you rely upon that when it's very expensive. all of these sort of levels, and as I said earlier, electric vehicles as well, all of these levels of change in the way we use energy are dependent upon monitoring the energy that we use and being in control of the energy that we use. And you're only going to do that with some form of system, of intelligent system within your house. And that could be anything. That could be the Google or the Apple system. The problem that I have personally with the Google route and the Apple route is it's twofold. One is that both the Google and the Apple business strategy is to sell you new products between every 24 to 36 months. They want you to upgrade and update on a constant basis. The last thing they want you to do is go along, buy a Apple home care kit, let's say, and then never, ever have to upgrade it again. They don't want to do that. It's not part of their business strategy. And Google have proved this. They bought Nest. 2 years ago, they bought a company called Revolve, which was a smart home system, quite big in the States, much bigger in the States than it is in Europe, which they were sort of developing in parallel with Nest. In January, they just pulled the plug on it. It was a cloud-based system, and they've just said, no more. So all the kit that those people bought is completely defunct as of, I think it's June 30th this year. It will not work anymore. So you have to completely replace all of your kit. Funnily enough, they've offered discount rates to buy Nest equipment. So they want you to constantly buy new pieces of kit. And that, in my mind, is a fundamental problem with that business strategy.
Clearly, they've got the brands, but this open source route, do you think it's strong enough just to keep moving forwards, or will we always just be suckers for the latest Google gadget?
Well, yeah, there's always going to be suckers for the latest Google gadgets. It's going to be there. But we come back to that point where, say, something like KNX, it has been around for 26 years. And the stuff that was installed 26 years ago is completely compatible with every single piece of kit that's built today. So if it breaks down, you can still get a replacement for it. It may not be exactly the same item, but it'll probably do more than what it did 26 years ago. But you can still take that piece of kit out of your house and put a new piece of kit in. You don't have to replace the wiring. You don't have to replace the system. You don't even have to update the commissioning for it. It is still fully compatible. So it is a system that it's got all of the capabilities that you want it to have, but it's not a gadget. This is one of the key things. It has a different level of functionality within it.
I think we're getting towards the end of the podcast now. I've still got a few questions. One of them actually is on control, that on a wider scale, we talk about us being in control, but is that always the case? Are we actually inviting someone else into our home, say our energy companies, to just switch us off when they need to? Is that something that could happen?
The energy companies have been talking along those lines, that they will control the energy usage. I spoke about how the energy market will look in 5 years, but in 10 or 15 years, again, it's going to be hugely different. I think we're going down the lines of things like smart and local grids, community energy production. And again, what I said before still stands true, which is that you need a system of control. You need a system of control. And yeah, why not take it out of the energy company's hands and keep it in your own hands, or keep it within your community's hands? It's something that I am actively working on with KNX for community energy systems. And this does involve, community PV, anaerobic digestion, wind power, local battery storage, both in houses and then local to that community, and making things like housing associations, when they build 150 or 200 houses, they can actually become a net exporter of energy. But again, it needs a control system. In that situation, there are a number of different options about that, that you could use. It doesn't have to be KNX on that sort of situation. But to take it down to room by room control, where you can look at it. But yeah, the energy companies have a huge amount of influence, obviously. So we need to take back that control from them. And the best way is to know how much energy you're using all the time.
And then finally, what else do we need to know as people who may not necessarily be doing this installation ourselves or using this? Anything else that is good in an overview about KNX?
The flexibility within the system is without rival. It has huge implications for care of the elderly and moving into things like the assisted living, assistive technology area as well. So that makes it, as you age, you can adapt your house to you. There's no reason why you should adapt to your house. We've got the technology now, we've got the ability. If you're a home builder, you have that fantastic opportunity to look at your house and say, this is my house for me now. What's it going to be like when I'm 70 or 80 years old? So you will naturally look at how the house will adapt, but everything else needs to adapt with it as well. So this is why KNX offers you that level of adaptability. And a sort of like a general thing for a home builder, I would say, is that don't be afraid to ask someone else, someone that does know. You know, people say it's expensive to employ a professional. It's like, well, wait until you start paying for an amateur.
Good point to end on, Paul. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
There's more in today's show notes, which are at houseplanninghelp.com/133. You can review all the main points. We've also got links across to Paul at Echohouse and also KNX. You can find out more about that. And if you have a comment or you'd like to ask a question, do that at the bottom of the show notes, houseplanninghelp.com/133. Let's read you a quick iTunes review. This is from Joy's Boy, who's based in the UK, and he's titled this one, Useful and Inspirational. All the information I was looking for is here, it seems. Like Ben Adam Smith, I harbour that dream of building a green home. Mr. Adam Smith himself is aiming to achieve that by his 40th birthday in August 2016. I've listened to about 25 of these so far. Hopefully I'll have caught up by then to see whether he achieves it. Exciting. It's like a really long and incredibly informative episode of Grand Designs. It could get longer. Thank you for that. Brilliant to have iTunes reviews. We really appreciate them. And the more I've looked into this, the more I think that when we seem to get lots of the reviews, we are getting lots of newcomers to the podcast. So I'm sure Apple and iTunes are fiddling away in the background thinking, oh, there's another review. We'll bump them up in the charts or whatever they do. Who knows what the algorithm is? But I'm convinced it will help more people find this. If you have enjoyed what we've talked about in these podcasts or learnt anything, that's one way to help us, is to write an iTunes review. Give someone else a sense of what this podcast is all about. Let's finish up on a hub update and the latest bits and pieces we've added in there. The Long Barrow story, the chapter that we have, this is a video about 3 or 4 minutes long this time, is building up the first floor walls with insulated concrete formwork. And we're going to take this opportunity to look at why Alex was keen to use ICF, some of the pros and cons and exactly how it works. There's also a module on roofing. We cover the fundamentals. Why do we have roofs? The various types, the support that you need under them, warm roofs, cold roofs. We look at tiles, green roofs, the works. So that's in our latest module. And if you're not a hub member yet, have a look at a video that I've made that tells you everything you'll want to know about it and also gives you a little sneak peek inside the hub. houseplanninghelp.com/join. Next time, Angie and Paul Dallas are my guests, and we take a look at the story of their energy efficient build in Goldcart, West Yorkshire. What's particularly interesting on this one is that Paul wanted to be part of the team building the house. We hear about self-builders who do go ahead and build that. He wasn't particularly confident to do that on his own, but he wants to be part of the team. So we'll hear all about that. Get the story. It's another good one coming. The House Planning Help podcast is produced by Regen Media, content that matters.